Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known by BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county seat of state, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, July the 21st, 2024, time 12:07 p.m. First, I'm going to say thank you to my family, my support for continue encourage, want to continue keep myself employed in Memphis, tri-state area, continue to further my education, my own car, don't I? Continue to pursue my social media stuff, being administrative contract, marketing, print time. I took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm gonna go back to school, and I'm gonna continue to further my education in being administrative and concentrating in marketing, and as well as earn my degree, and as well as other degrees. Now look, I'm gonna start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known by BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis, in the county seat of state of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, July the 21st, 2024. The time 12:08 p.m. First, say thank you to my family, my support for your continued encouragement support. I'll continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area and continue to further my education, my own online. Continue to pursue my social media stuff, being administrative country market. I took a break from going to school, but in the future, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna earn my social degree, and I'm continue to further my education, and in being administrative, contract marketing, as well as earn other degrees as well. Now, last weekend, I had to work. That's the reason why I didn't make my video last week. I had to work, and then that was last Saturday. I had to work, and then Sunday afternoon, I was like, well, I can still get myself ready, and I can possibly try to, make a little short video, whatever. But then I had to turn around, cause I went to the grocery store. Usually I go to the grocery store on Saturdays, cause usually I had a weekend off. Like this weekend, I had a weekend off. I had to turn back around and go back to the grocery store Sunday morning because I had forgot. I forgot to get my razors. I ain't had no shaving cream. So all that kind of stuff. I had to go back to the grocery store. And so by the time I got back, not that it took long. It's just, I had to go up the street. It's just the fact that, first of all, when you get up in the morning, I had forgot. So my mind really wasn't even on going to the grocery store. I went in the bathroom. And then I thought of when I was getting ready to get myself together, I looked, I was like, oh man, I forgot to get my razor. So that completely, when you forget something, your mind, because once I woke up in the morning, I was like, well, I'm going to sleep to a certain amount of time, then I'm going to get up. That was my plan. That was what I was planning on doing. So I said, I'm going to sleep around about this time, and then I'm going to get up and get myself together. So I got up. Hadn't even thought about my razor or my shaving cream yet. I get into the bathroom. And just at the moment that I started saying, okay, I'm finna get, I look down there, I was like, oh man, I forgot my razors. Then I forgot my shaving cream. So that kind of throwed everything off. So I had to get dressed, go to the grocery store, then come back to the house. And I was like, man, this ain't junk. Now I really didn't want to try to wait till nighttime because I got to get myself ready for the next day. So I said, well, no, but I just honestly forgot, But I'm here today. Now look, I'm starting my video, and I'm gonna have to deal with some things. I want to get, we be talking about Judaism and things in nature, which is right, because first of all, I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm not anti-Semitic. Now we touched on some things about this anti-Judaism and anti-Semitism mess with this Gnostic information. Because it's not just a name of my library. We have to always remember. We all have to remember that some of this Gnostic stuff was found back in, 1600s, 1500s, and all that, like with the Askew Codex, the Bruce Codex, the Berlin Codex, and then they've been finding this Manichaean stuff, and then they've been finding this Mandaic stuff. That's some Gnostic stuff. So they've been finding this stuff even in the, prior to the Nag Hammadi Library. And then let's not forget, the Dead Sea Scrolls have been discovered. And it took 10 years for the Dead Sea Scrolls to be discovered. And they still digging. They ain't stopped digging. They still dig. Archaeologists and anthropologists, all the scientists are continuing to do research, to continue to do investigations on all this ancient texts and documents and things of this nature. And so these things are important. The time period when they found these things, and when you talk about research, let's not forget the first college and university, like Oxford University and Cambridge University, things of this nature. That's over in England. What we today call college and university. In that. So when it comes to all this information about doing investigation and study, the United States government hadn't even, they still fighting the Revolutionary War, 1776. You see where I'm coming from? The United States of America hadn't even been really established. You had the 13 colonies. So these things are important. The dates are important. It's just like the Nag Hammadi Library and when the Dead Sea Scrolls was discovered. The dates are important. Because when you say 1946, that means that, and then when we look into the discovery of these documents, this Nag Hammadi Library, it wasn't even in nobody's possession. And they've been saying this all the time, that when people were saying that they were studying Gnosticism, they were still studying from the heresiology. That's what they've been studying, even today. They still studying heresiology, like Philo and Hippolytus, because Hippolytus, as you know, he wrote his book against all heresies. And of course, we know about St. Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, and St. Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, the 5-volume book that they wrote, and versus heresies, against heresies. But that's what people were talking about. If they said anything to anybody about Gnosticism, that's where they were getting a lot of information from, until they had these discoveries. See, these things are important. And like I said about the Nag Hammadi Library, at these colleges and universities around the world, when Mr. Dorisi even asked about, when they said that the Nag Hammadi Library had been found, it was found by the Arabs in Egypt. The little farm boys outside playing, and his father was a farmer, and then, the people who had in their possession, people trying to sell stuff and all, you know how the story goes. But the point is this: they did not have any copy of the Nag Hammadi Library in their possession. Nobody had seen anything. So it took years for the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library to be actually translated. First, they had to get in possession of it. Mr. Robinson and UNICEF. This is important. It's important to highlight this thing. You got to make this clear. Up until, and Mr. Jung, of course, this man lost his life trying to get possession of the Nag Hammadi Library. This is important. It has to be highlighted. Because no college or university on this earth, on this planet, had any access to the Nag Hammadi Library. There was no investigation. There was no research on the Nag Hammadi Library up until UNICEF. UNESCO. UNESCO. Not UNICEF, but UNESCO. The United Nations. UNESCO. And commissioned Mr. Robinson to get some scholars together. And this is what, 1970s. This is in the 1970s. This is important. And then Mr. Robinson and the scholars had to get possession of the Nag Hammadi Library first. And then they began to translate and all this kind of stuff. And now the Nehemiah library, like all this other stuff that's been found in the ground, all these documents and all these texts, is in some kind of library, is in some kind of museum. And it's still being studied, still being investigated and researched by the scholars all over the world. All over the world. And so, like I said, these things are important. Like I said, I had to work last weekend, so these things, but I'm making my video today. And so, these are things that had to be highlighted and pointed out. It's very important. Very important about colleges and universities all over the world. Now, BibleStudyTools.com. You can go to BibleStudyTools.com and they have all the available versions of the Holy Bible. Okay, best known translation, English Standard Version, King James Version, the New American Standard Bible, the New International Version, New King James Version, and so on. So the New Revised Standard Version of the King James Bible. And then you have other translations like the modern translation, like the Bible in Basic English, Common English Bible, the Complete Jewish Bible, Good News Translation, and so on. Hebrew Names Version, the Jubilee Bible 2000, the New Century Version, New International Reader's Version, Orthodox Jewish Bible. These, and then you got a World English Bible. Then you got older translations like the American Standard Version, the Darby Translation, Dewey Reams Catholic Bible, Revised Standard Version, the Tyndale Bible, the Latin Vulgate Bible, Wycliffe Bible. And then you got Bibles like New Testament only, Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Dutch, Chinese. The Holy Bible being translated all over the world, which is a good thing. This is a good thing. We encourage that type of thing, We want all people on God's green earth, on this planet, to have access to the Holy Bible. Now let's click over to, like I said, that was the Bible StudyTools.com. Now let's click over to BibleGateway.com. They also have the available versions of the Holy Bible. And it's mostly in languages, various languages from A to Z, like Amharic, Bulgarian Bibles. You got the Arabic Bible. Even Native Americans, first American here in the United States of America, there's a Cherokee New Testament Bible. Then you got all these English Bibles. I mean, that's a good thing, man. You know what I'm saying? All people around the world. Persian Bible, Finnish Bible, French, Greek, Hebrew Bibles, Hindi Bibles, Croatian Bible, even a Haitian Creole. You know what I'm saying? Haitian Creole Bibles. Hungarian Bible, Hawaii Bible, Icelandic Bibles, Japanese Bibles, Oriental, what's it? Jacotech Bible, that's an Oriental Bible. Korean Bible. Maori Bible. Like I said, various languages all over the world. Polish Bibles, Portuguese Bibles, and Russian Bibles, Somali Bible, Albanian Bible, Serbian, Swedish, Swahili Bible, Tamil Bible, Thai Bible, Tagalog Bible, Twi Bible, Ukrainian, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, all the way to Urdu Bible, Vietnamese Bible, Yoruba Bible, and then all these Chinese Bibles. From A to Z, practically A to Z. But I mean, there are many people on God's green earth, on this planet, you know what I'm saying, speak various languages. You know what I'm saying, culture and customs, not trying to impose any kind of belief or faith on any human being, because that's what our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ didn't say do. Is try to force any human being, you know what I'm saying, to to be a follower, to be a disciple of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God. And so, like I said, you can go to BibleStudy2.com, all available versions of the Holy Bible, BibleGateway.com, available versions of the Holy Bible. Now let me click over here on this tab here. Old Testament names of God. Elohim. And I know about the Tetragrammaton. You know, when you say Yahweh, and as well as Jehovah, you know. Now, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Shammah, Jehovah Siddiqenu, El Roy, El Elohi, El Shaddai, Jehovah Shalom, Jehovah Nissi, El Elyon, Jehovah Ra, Jehovah Abba, Elohim Shaim, Adonai, and the Tetragrammaton, El, Jehovah Sabaoth, El Elyon, the Lord who sacrifices, Alpha and Omega, living God. Now those are names of God in the Old Testament. Now, names of God in the New Testament. Elohim, Tetragrammaton. Jehovah, Abba, Jehovah Sabaoth, the Lord who sacrifices. El Shaddai, Yahweh Nissi, Jehovah Rapha, God, Jehovah Siddiqenu, Emmanuel, Adonai, Yahweh, Shalom, Tetragrammaton, I know, and Tetragrammaton, Shammah, and Jehovah Roy. And those are names of God in the New Testament. Now when we talk about Old Testament, New Testament, we're talking about the Holy Bible. We're talking about the Holy Bible. Now let's click over here to this Tetragrammaton. Be a little more thorough. The Tetragrammaton, or the tetragram, is the 4-letter Hebrew theonym, the name of God in the Hebrew Bible. The 4 letters, written and read from right to left in Hebrew, are YODH, HE, WAW, and HE. The name may be derived from a verb that means to be, to exist, to cause to become, or to come to pass. While there is no consensus about the structure and etymology of the name, the form Yahweh is now accepted almost universally, though the vocalization Jehovah continues to have wide usage. The books of the Torah in the rest of the Hebrew Bible except Esther, Ecclesiastes, and with a possible instance of the short term in verse 8:6. The Song of Songs contained this Hebrew name. Observant Jews and those who follow Talmudic Jewish tradition do not pronounce, nor do they read aloud proposed transcription forms such as Yahweh or Jehovah. Instead, they replace it with a different term, whether in addressing or referring to the God of Israel. Read it again. Observant Jews and those who follow Talmudic Jewish traditions do not pronounce, nor do they read aloud proposed transcription forms such as Yahweh or Jehovah. Instead, they replace it with a different term, whether in addressing or referring to the God of Israel. Common substitutions in Hebrew are Adonai, my lords, plurals, majestatis, taken as singular, or Elohim, literally gods, but treated as singular when meaning God in prayer, or Hashem, the name in everyday speech. Now we have etymology, and we also have the vocalization. Let me just read this one little note here. It's very significant here. When you say Yahweh, the scholarly consensus is that the original pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton was Yahweh. And R.R. Reno agrees that when in the late first millennium, Jewish scholars inserted indications of vowels into the Hebrew Bible, they signaled that what was pronounced was Adonai, Lord. Non-Jews later combined the vowels of Adonai with the consonants of the Tetragrammaton and invented the name Jehovah. So like I said, things like that had to be pointed out. And so all right. Now I'm going to touch on something to make sure we have that foundation. Now we're gonna refer back to Jewish principles of faith. So now, like I said, we want to refer back to Jewish principles of faith. And one of the things what we're trying to emphasize is the conception of God, monotheism. Judaism is based on a strict monotheism and a belief in one single, indivisible, non-compound God, the Shema Yisrael. One of the most important Jewish prayers encapsulates the monotheistic nature of Judaism. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Judaism emphatically rejects any concept of plurality with respect to God, explicitly rejecting polytheism, dualism, and Trinitarianism, which are incompatible with monotheism as Judaism understands it. Read it again. Judaism is based on a strict monotheism and a belief in one single, indivisible, non-compound God, the Shema Yisrael. One of the most important Jewish prayers encapsulates the monotheistic nature of Judaism. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Judaism emphatically rejects any concept of plurality with respect to God, explicitly rejecting polytheism, dualism, and Trinitarianism, which are incompatible with monotheism as Judaism understands it. The unity of God is stated many times in Jewish tradition. It is the second of Maimonides' 13 principles of faith. Maimonides wrote that this God is one God. This God is one, not two or more than two, but one, whose unity is different from all other unities that there are. He is not one as a genus. Which contains many species, is one, nor is he one as a body containing parts and dimensions, is one, but his is a unity, that which there is no other anywhere. In Jewish tradition, dualistic and Trinitarian conceptions of God are generally referred to as shalut and shatut, partnership, meaning an incorrect but not an idolatrous view. That's what I want to put the emphasis on. Now let's touch on this. We're gonna touch on this, but we ain't gonna spend too much time on. God is the creator of the universe. Most Jews believe that God is creator of the universe. Different sects of Jews view this in different ways. For example, some ultra-Orthodox groups reject the concept of evolution and believe the earth to be only a few thousand years old. Other groups of Orthodox and non-Orthodox Jews do not believe in a literal interpretation of the Genesis creation narrative, and according to that view, Judaism is not in contradiction to the scientific model that states that the age of the universe is around 13.77 billion years old. Norbert M. Samuelson writes, the question of dating the universe has never been a problem of Jewish philosophy, ultimately because that philosophy has never taken the literal meaning of the Bible to be its revealed true meaning. While the general Jewish attitude has been that God created the world ex nihilo, Rabbi Mark D. Angel writes that historically there has been a general reluctance in Jewish tradition to speculate on the metaphysical aspects of creation. And I guess this must be his statement. The important statement for Judaism that God did in fact create the world, an evolutionary process did not simply happen by itself, but was set into motion by God. When the Bible speaks of God creating the world in 6 days, it may be speaking figuratively. The word yam, day, in the creation story can hardly be proved to be referring to a day of 24 hours. After all, the sun itself was not created until the fourth day. So it is impossible to argue that the first 3 days were days as we know them. A more appropriate way to understand the creation story is that God created the universe in 6 stages, and each of these stages may have taken millions of years or 24 hours or instants. In short, Judaism insists that God created the world, that he created it in stages, and that he continues to maintain the universe which he created. The specific details of the creation process are not central to Jewish thought. Now, Moses Maimonides, the 12th century, wrote that by virtue of the existence of the Creator, everything exists, and that time itself is part of creation. And therefore, when God is described as existing before the creation of the universe, the notion of time should not be understood in its normal sense. The 15th century Jewish philosopher Joseph Albo argued similarly in his Ikarim that there are 2 types of time: measured time, which depends on motion, and time in the abstract, the second of which has no origin and is the infinite space of time before the universe was created. Albo argued that although it is difficult to conceive of God existing in such a duration, it is likewise difficult to imagine God outside space. Other Jewish writers have come to different conclusions, such as 13th century scholar Beya ben Asher, 16th century scholar Moses Amos Nino, and the 18th century Hasidic teacher Naaman of Bratslav, who expressed their views similar to that expressed by the Christian Neoplatonic writer Boethius, that God lives in the eternal present and transcends or is above all time. Now I'm going to scroll down. Now we got the nature of God, which is important, but I want to scroll down to what we call the soul devotion to the Creator. Within Judaism, the essence of worship is deeply rooted in the belief of monotheism, emphasizing the exclusive devotion to the Creator. This principle dictates that worship and reverence should be directed solely towards God. As articulated by Maimonides' fifth principle of faith, according to this belief, no entity aside from the Creator is deemed worthy of worship. See, this is what we want. I want to make sure we got that foundation. Because see, when you read the Holy Bible, you got an Old Testament and you have a New Testament. We believe, like the Jews had this belief in the Old Testament, that God is one God. Now, when it comes to this issue about the Messiah, the Jews don't believe in the historical Jesus being the Messiah. But, like myself and many others, we believe that the historical Jesus is the Messiah. Now, like I stated before, and I'm going to state it again. I, myself, I don't have any what you call proof. My eyes, my ears, nose, mouth, my senses, touch and feel. I am not a witness to what you call, like in the New Testament, like our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, healing people. I didn't see that myself. I didn't hear my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ when he was giving a sermon. I didn't hear that. I didn't even see my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God. Physically, I ain't never seen my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God. I've never seen the historical Jesus. What do I have to base my belief on in my faith? The New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. As well as the book of Acts. And then from that, you have the epistles. 1st and 2nd Peter. And then, of course, you got the Apostle Paul with all those epistles. And so on and so forth. That's what I base my belief on in my faith. Now, being an aspiring Catholic, I'll also add that the disciples, the 12 disciples, who taught the fathers of the church and many of the sayings of the church fathers. See, you got to have faith. They were taught by the 12 disciples. And the 12 disciples went around and they established all these locations where the Catholic Church was established. You understand? And so, based on faith, that's what I base my faith on. I'm not anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic. I just had this faith. I believe that the historical Jesus is the Messiah. That's all I'm going to say. But believing in the historical Jesus don't make me anti-Jewish. It don't make me anti-Semitic. And that's important. That's very important. Because see, when you get to the root, see, you got to make sure you don't forget the same God. When you talk about the historical Jesus, we talking about that same God. We talking about monotheism. We talking about monotheism. One God. The same God. We have belief that the New Testament is divine inspired from that same one God. The God of Judaism. Because no other faith talking about no Messiah. only Judaism, talking about the Messiah. And so that God of the Old Testament is the same God, the New Testament. The same. Nothing different. So the core beliefs of Judaism about God carries over to the New Testament. And it's just like when they found the Nehemiah Library, as well as those other codex. They found the Askew Codex, the Bruce Codex, and the Berlin Codex, and then they found some Manichaean writings, some documents, and then they found some Mandaic documents and stuff like that. But they found that before the Nehemiah Library, and they still finding stuff, all kind of stuff. Archaeologists all around the world still finding, all kind of stuff. And Dead Sea Scrolls. That is the Old Testament. A lot of it, the majority of it is from Genesis all the way to, a lot of it is the Old Testament. And it's very old. They keep carbon dating it. They keep dating all this Dead Sea Scroll. It goes way back, 1,000 some years before. That's how old it is. That's how old the Dead Sea Scroll is. It's just that old. It's older than the Nehemiah Library. Because when they date all this stuff, it's older. The Dead Sea Scroll is older than the Nehemiah Library. It's older than that other stuff they found. The Askew Codex, the Bruce Codex, Berlin Codex. It's older than that. It's the Old Testament. But that's the reason why I wanted to make sure I do what I'm doing today, is to make sure the foundation of Judaism is monotheism. Now, we clicked over here. Wikipedia is very valuable, very useful. Now, let me scroll down to monotheism. Let me scroll down to the bottom. Let's not forget footnotes, references, and citations. All right. Okay, we got references. Then we got further reading. But we got a lot of references. A lot. Of 201 references. But like I said, monotheism. Yeah, monotheism. Make sure I'm looking at this. Now, I'm not gonna go too far. I'm just gonna give a general meaning. But monotheism is the belief that one God is the only deity. What's a deity? Is a supernatural being considered to be sacred and worthy of worship due to having authority over the universe, nature, or human life. That's what a deity. So that's monotheism. A distinction may be made between exclusive monotheism, in which the one God is a singular existence, and both inclusive and plural form monotheism, in which multiple gods or godly forms are recognized, but each are postulated as extensions of the same God. Monotheism is distinguished from henotheism, henotheism is the worship of a single supreme God that does not deny the existence or possible existence of other deities that may be worshipped. A religious system in which the believer worships one God without denying that others may worship different gods with equal validity, and monolatrism. And what is that? Monolatry is the belief in the existence of many gods, but with the consistent worship of only one deity. The recognition of the existence of many gods, but with the consistent worship of only one deity. And said the prophets of ancient Israel were the first to teach monotheism, establishing it as a foundational tenet of the Jewish religious tradition, which endures as one of its most profound and enduring legacies. Now, monotheism characterizes the tradition of Zoroastrianism, Babaism, the Baha'i faith, Christianity, Deism, Judaism, Ikhar, Sikhism, Manichaeism, Islam, Judaism, Samaritanism, Mandaism, Rastafari, Sichonoli, and Tenrikyo, Yazidism, and Atanism. Elements of monotheistic thought are found in early religions such as ancient Chinese religion, Tingrism, and Yahwehism. So, we want to know, like I said today, I want to put that foundation that Judaism is monotheistic. Now, let's click over here to polytheism. Now, we clicked over here polytheism. We know we're on Wikipedia, so let's scroll down. We got to scroll down to the bottom. All right. We got to scroll down. Okay, see also and references. Okay, references and further reading and external links. Okay. Okay. Now, like I said, we over here on polytheism and looking at this stuff. So, let's get to polytheism. Is the belief in or worship of more than one God. According to Oxford Reference, it is not easy to count gods, and so not always obvious whether an apparently polytheistic religion, such as Chinese folk religions, is really so, or whether the apparent different objects of worship are to be thought of as manifestations of a singular divinity. Polytheistic belief is usually assembled into a pantheon of gods and goddesses, along with their own religious sects and rituals. Polytheism is a type of theism. Now, curse on now, theism. Theism is broadly defined as the belief in the existence of at least one deity in common parlance, or when contrasted with deism. The term often describes the philosophical conception of God that is found in classical theism. All right. Within theism, it contrasts monotheism, the belief in a singular God who is, in most cases, transcendent. In religions that accept polytheism, the different gods and goddesses may be representations of forces of nature or ancestral principles. They can be viewed either as autonomous or as aspects or emanations of a creator deity or transcendental absolute principle monistic theologies. Which manifests eminently in nature, pantheistic and pantheistic theologies. Polytheists do not always worship all the gods equally. They can be in monolatries or pantheonothesis, specializing in the worship of one particular deity only or at certain times, respectively. The recognition of the existence of multiple gods and goddesses does not necessarily equate to the worship of all the deities of one or more pantheons, as the believer can either worship them as a whole or concentrate only on a specific group of deities, determined by various conditions such as the believer's occupation, taste, personal experience, family tradition, etc. It is also possible to worship a single deity considered supreme without ruling out the existence of other gods. This religious position has been called henotheism, but some prefer to call it monolatry. Although the term henotheism is controversial, it is recognized by scholars that the worship of a single god accompanied by belief in other deities maintains the principle of polytheism. Polytheism was the typical form of religion before the development and spread of the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, which enforced monotheism. It is well documented throughout history, from prehistory in the earliest records of ancient Egyptian religion, and ancient Mesopotamian religion to the religions prevalent during classical antiquity, such as ancient Greek religion and ancient Roman religion, and in ethnic religions such as Germanic, Slavic, and Baltic paganism. In Native American religions, notable polytheistic religions practiced today include Taoism, Shintoism, or Chinese folk religion, Japanese Shinto, Santeria, most traditional African religions, and various neo-pagan faiths such as Wicca. Hinduism, while popularly held as polytheist, cannot be exclusively characterized as such, as some Hindus consider themselves to be pantheists, panetheists, henotheists, polymorphists, monotheists, or monists. They are compatible with Hindu texts since there exists no consistency of standardization in the faith. Vedanta, the most dominant school of Hinduism, offers a combination of pantheism, panentheism, and polytheism, holding that Brahman is the sole ultimate reality of the universe, yet unity with it can be reached by worshiping the innumerable deities that represent the supreme absolute truth. Hindus who practice Bhakti ultimately believe in one God, who is known variously as Paramatman, Parabrahman, or Bhagavan, Ishvara, and so on, that transcends all categories, both of form and formless. Even though God is one, God manifests in infinite forms to help her devotees realize her. And this is not to be confused with the belief that there are multiple gods, goddesses. They can be referred to as polymorphic monotheism. So, we know that there's a difference. Monotheism and polytheism. You can just by reading, you can hear it's different. Not the same. Because then from a scientific, from a scholarly point of view, you got all these sub-terms from monotheism and polytheism. You have all these sub-terms. So that's polytheism. Now we're going to deal with this dualism. Now, of course, I'm on Wikipedia, so let's scroll down to the bottom. All right. Now you got to make sure that when you say dualism, you have to make sure you're talking about dualism in cosmology. You got to make sure you spec, because when you just say dualism, all right, we're on Wikipedia and we're talking about dualism in cosmology. So let me scroll down. All right, we got footnotes. Then we got the bibliography. All right. So like I said, we scroll down to the bottom and then we got the bibliography. All right, let's go back up. Dualism in cosmology. Now, dualism in cosmology. Dualism in cosmology or dualistic cosmology is the moral or spiritual belief that two fundamental concepts exist, which often oppose each other. It is an umbrella term that covers a diversity of views from various religions, including both traditional religions and scriptural religions. Moral dualism is the belief of the great complement of or conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent. It simply implies that there are two moral opposites at work, independent of any interpretation of what might be moral and independent of how these may be represented. Moral opposites might, for example, exist in a worldview that has one God, more than one God, or none. By contrast, duotheism dualism in cosmology or dualistic cosmology is the moral or spiritual belief that two fundamental concepts exist, which often oppose each other. It is umbrella. Okay. Then you have bitheism. Dualism in cosmology or dualistic cosmology is the moral or spiritual belief that two fundamental concepts exist, which often oppose each other. All right. Or ditheism implies at least two gods. So duotheism or bitheism or ditheism implies at least two gods, while bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, or light and dark, or summer and winter. For example, a theistic system could be one in which one God is a creator and the other a destroyer. In theology, dualism can also refer to the relationship between the deity and creation, or the deity and the universe. And see theistic dualism. That form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. Alternatively, in ontological dualism, the world is divided into two overarching categories. Within Chinese culture and philosophy, the opposition and combination of the universe's two basic principles are expressed as yin and yang. In our traditionally foundational doctrine of Taoism and Confucianism in some Chinese Buddhist schools. Many myths and creation motives with dualistic cosmologies have been described in ethnographic and anthropologic literature. The motives conceive the world as being created, organized, or influenced by two demiurges, culture heroes, or other mythological beings who compete with each other or have a complementary function in creating, arranging, or influencing the world. There is a huge diversity of such cosmologies. In some cases, such as among the Chukchi, all right. Okay, that's a Siberian ethnic group native to the Chukchi Peninsula. Okay. The beings collaborate rather than compete. and they contribute to the creation in a co-equal way. In many other instances, the two beings are not of the same importance or power. Sometimes one of them is even characterized as gullible. Sometimes they can be contrasted as good versus evil. They may be often believed to be twins or at least brothers. Dualistic motives in mythologies can be observed in all inhabited continents. Zolotarjov concludes that they cannot be explained by diffusion or borrowing, but are rather of convergent origin. They are related to a dualistic organization of society. Moieties. In some cultures, the social organization may have ceased to exist, but mythology preserves the memory in more and more disguised ways. Now, moral dualism is the belief of the great complement or conflict between the benevolent and malevolent, like diatheism and biotheism. Moral dualism does not imply the absence of monist or monotheistic principles. Moral dualism simply implies that there are two moral opposites at work, independent of any interpretation of what might be moral, and unlike diatheism and biotheism, independent of how these may be represented. For example, Mazdaism or Mazdian Zoroastrianism is both dualistic and monotheistic, but not monist by definition, since in that philosophy God, the creator, is purely good, and the antithesis, which is also uncreated, is an absolute one. Mandaism is monotheistic and Gnostic, and in its cosmology, the world of light that is good is contrasted with the world of darkness or underworld. Zervanism, Zervanite, Zoroastrianism, and Manichaeism are representative of dualistic and monist philosophies, since each has a supreme and transcendental first principle from which the two equal but opposite entities then emanate. This is also true for the lesser known Christian Gnostic religions such as Bogomils, Catharism, and so on. More complex forms of monist dualism also exist. For instance, in Hermeticism, renounced thought that is described to have created man brings forth both good and evil, depending on interpretation, whether it receives prompting from the God or from the demon. Duality with pluralism is considered a logical fallacy. So all this stuff about some dualistic stuff, as you just read, all this moral, dualism. You have this benevolent and then this malevolent. There's always some kind of conflict, a great complement or conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent. So let's make sure let's touch on this right quick. Now you got dual theism, bitheism, and ditheism, and then you have theistic dualism. In theology, dualism can refer to the relationship between God and creation, or God and the universe. This form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism, Zoroastrianism. Then you have Manichaeism. And then in Christianity, the dualism between God and creation has existed as a central belief in multiple historical sets and traditions of Christianity, including Marcionism, Catharism, Paulicianism, and other forms of Gnostic Christianity. Christian dualism refers to the belief that God and creation are distinct but interrelated through an indivisible bond. However, Gnosticism is a diverse, syncretistic religious movement consisting of various belief systems, generally united in the belief in a distinction between a supreme transcendent God and a blind evil demiurge responsible for creating the material universe, thereby trapping the divine spark within matter. Gnosticism is not limited to Christianity and also incorporates belief from other Abrahamic traditions, such as early Jewish sects. In sects like the Cathars and the Paulicians, this is a dualism between the material world, created by an evil God, and a moral God. Historians divide Christian dualism into absolute dualism, which held that the good and evil gods were equally powerful, and mitigated dualism, which held that material evil was subordinate to the spiritual good. The belief by Christian theologians who adhere to a libertarian or compatibilist view of free will, that free will separates humankind from God, has also been characterized as a form of dualism. The theologian Leroy Stevens Rauner compares the dualism of Christianity with the dualism that exists in Zoroastrianism and the Samkhya tradition of Hinduism. The theological use of the word dualism dates back to 1700 in a book that describes the dualism between good and evil. Now, the tolerance of dualism ranges widely among the different Christian traditions. As a monotheistic religion, the conflict between dualism and monism has existed in Christianity since its inception. The 1912 Catholic Encyclopedia describes that in the Catholic Church, the dualistic hypothesis of an eternal world existing side by side with God was, of course, rejected by the 13th century, but mind-body dualism was not. The problem of evil is difficult to reconcile with absolute monism and has prompted some Christian sects to veer towards dualism. Gnostic forms of Christianity were more dualistic, and some Gnostic traditions posited that the devil was separate from God as an independent deity. The Christian dualists of the Byzantine Empire, the Paulicians, were seen as Manichaean heretics by Byzantine theologians. This tradition of Christian dualism, founded by Constantine Sylvanus, argued that the universe was created through evil and separate from a moral God. So again, you hear these things about Gnostic, and you try to put Jew in front of Gnostic. You try to put Christian in front of Gnostic. But as you can see, it's really totally different from Jewish and as well as the Catholic Church. All this moral dualism, all this benevolent and malevolent, that's not what the Catholic Church teaches. And that's not what the Jews most certainly do not teach, nothing like that. So like they've been telling you all the time, the Jews been telling you, you're a heretic. And that's the same thing that the Catholic Church tells you. You're a heretic. You're not smarter than anybody else, man. See, that's what criminals do. They try to make you think they smarter than everybody else. The people that, for example, you got people that, companies that manufacture, these alarm systems. For some apparent reason, the criminals think they smarter than the people that manufacture the alarm system. They think they know more about, than the manufacturer do. The people that in the Jewish faith, they are very intelligent. And the people in the Catholic Church are very intelligent. But that's how the whole Catholic faith got started, was by the Jewish followers of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God. But like I said, I want to establish a foundation that Judaism is monotheism. All this stuff you hear, just like we just got through reading about dualism. They put Jewish Gnosticism and Christian Gnosticism. You're a heretic. And then straight to the point, you are a heretic. That's what I want to make sure we get the foundation on. Now we know that the modern scholars and contemporary scholars, this thing about the Nag Hammadi Library being found, some Gnostic papers, and like I said, they found them Mandaic papers and Manichaean papers. They found that stuff too. They've been buried in the ground, wherever they found them at. And prior to the Nag Hammadi Library being found, they found the Askew Codex. They found the Bruce Codex. They found the Berlin Codex. And like I said about the Nag Hammadi Library, it was discovered in 1945 by a little farm boy outside playing. And of course, his father was a farmer. Found out about what his son had found out, and and so on and so forth. And it had to be a process. The scholars and universities all around the world, when they find things, when the archaeologists find things, colleges and universities don't be knowing what, they don't be having these things in their possession up until the archaeologists find and discover these things. And so, these things are important. And just like the name of my library, it was discovered in 1945. And it took a period of time for them to actually get possession of the name of my library. And so, like I said, the name of my library, I clicked over to this. But, the name of my library, you know what I'm saying, and one thing we want to also not leave out that in the nation of Egypt during that period of time, you know, you have to look at the nation of Egypt as a whole. There was a lot of things going on. And like I said, there was a lot of changes government-wise in Egypt. You talking about 1946 and then 1950s and 1960s and 70s. All that was important because, you know, from the government's point of view, the government it was a government change, and they declared the Nag Hammadi Library national property. And so when they did that, they put the text in the museum. But it was because the government had changed. See, nobody had possession of the Nag Hammadi Library. Nobody had possession of the name. The scholars like Mr. Dorisi, the Frenchman, him and other scholars were making inquiries about, because they found out about it being discovered. So people were making inquiries about it, and so Mr. Dorisi went over there and tried to talk to the local farmer. He was a teenager. He was a little kid. And Mr. Robinson also. In the 1970s, Mr. Robinson sought out the local farmer in question, identifying him as Muhammad Ali Al-Summon. And Mr. Al-Summon told Robinson they come play store involved in blood feud, cannibalism, digging for fresh soil for agriculture use, and superstition by the jinn. His mother claimed that she had burned some of the manuscript. Robinson identified these with Codex 12. Robinson gave multiple accounts of his interview with the number of people present at the discovery ranging from 2 to 8. Gene DeRice's account contained none of these elements. So we got to deal with that. You know, when we talk about this discovery, it's a lot of stuff going on. It's just a lot of stuff going on. But as you can see, nobody has possession of the Nag Hammadi Library. None of the contemporary scholars, none of the modern scholars. Nobody is still in Egypt. And it's still in the hands of the same person. The people who discovered it. They still got possession of it. So I mean, this is very important. And see, it's a lot of stuff that's going on about this Nag Hammadi Library that need to be understood. It was not in anybody's possession. It was in Egypt. And when the people discovered it, those were the people that were still holding it. And they were talking about some kind of blood feud. Now, some of the stuff had been so slowly, most of the tracks came into the hands of Pokey and J. Tano, a Cypriot antique dealer in Cairo, and they were thereafter being retained by the Department of Antiquity for fear that they would be sold out of the country. And then after the revolution in 1952, the texts were handed to the Coptic Museum in Cairo and declared national property. Nobody outside of Egypt had any hand, they did not have their hands on the Nag Hammadi library. And then Pehor Labib, the director of the Coptic Museum at that time, was keen to keep the manuscripts in their country of origin. See, the manuscripts had not left Egypt, and nobody had their hands on except the people in Egypt. And then what did they do with it? They put the manuscripts in the museum. Meanwhile, a single codex had been sold in Cairo to a Belgian antiques dealer. After an attempt was made to sell the codex in both New York City and Paris, it was acquired by the Carl Gustav Jung Institute in Zurich in 1951. Through the mediation of Gilles Crispel, it was intended as a birthday present for Jung. For this reason, this codex is typically known as the Jung Codex, being Codex 1 in the collection. Jung's death in 1961 resulted in a quarrel over the ownership of the Jung Codex. The pages were not given to the Coptic Museum in Cairo until 1975. After a first edition of the text had been published, the papyri were finally brought together in Cairo of the 1945 find. 11 complete books and fragments of 2 others, amounting to well over 1,000 written pages, are preserved there. It's in the museum. And then it comes to the translation. And so here we go again. And there again, nobody but the people in Egypt got possession of the Nag Hammadi library. It's not in nobody else's hand. The Nag Hammadi library never left Egypt. The first edition of the text found in Nag Hammadi were from the Jung Codex, a partial translation of which appeared in Cairo in 1956, and a single extensive facsimile edition was planned. Due to the difficult political circumstance in Egypt, individual tracts followed from Cairo and Zurich collections only slowly. This state of affairs did not change until 1966 with the holding of the Messina Congress in Italy. At this conference, intended to allow scholars to arrive at a group consensus concerning the definition of Gnosticism, James W. Robinson assembled a group of editors and translators whose express task was to publish a bilingual edition of the Nag Hammadi codices in English, in collaboration with the Institute for Antiquity and Christianity at the Claremont Graduate University in Claremont, California, where Robinson was a faculty member. Robinson was elected secretary of the International Committee for the Nag Hammadi Codices, which had been formed in 1970 by UNESCO and the Egyptian Ministry of Culture. It was in this capacity that he oversaw the project. A facsimile edition in 12 volumes was published between 1972 and 1977, with subsequent editions in 1979 and 1984 from the publisher E.J. Brill in Leiden, entitled The Facsimile Edition of the Nag Hammadi Codex. This made all the texts available for all interested parties to study in some form. At the same time, in the German Democratic Republic, a group of scholars, including Alexander Bolich, Martin Krauss, and New Testament scholars Jacini Schenck, Hans Martin Schenck, and Hans Gebhard Betge, were preparing the first German language translation of the find. The last 3 scholars prepared a complete scholarly translation under the auspices of the Berlin Humboldt University, which was published in 2001. James M. Robinson translation was first published in 1977 with the name The Nag Hammadi Library in English in collaboration with E.J. Brill and Harper and Row. The single volume publication, according to Robinson, marked the end of one stage of Nag Hammadi scholarship and the beginning of another. From the preface to the third revised edition. Paperback edition followed in 1981-84 from E.J. Brill and Harper. Respectively, a third completely revised edition was published in 1988. This marks the final stage in the gradual dispersal of Gnostic texts into the wider public arena. The full complement of codices was finally available in unadulterated form to people around the world in a variety of languages. A cross-reference apparatus for Robinson's translation and the biblical canon also exists. Another English edition was published in 1987 by Yale scholar Bentley Layden called the Gnostic Scriptures. A new translation with annotations, Garden City, Doubleday and Company in 1987. The volume includes new translations from the Nag Hammadi Library together with extracts from the heresiological writers and other Gnostic material. It remains, along with the Nag Hammadi Library in English, one or more accessible volumes of translation of the Nag Hammadi Fine. It includes extensive historical introductions to individual Gnostic groups, notes on translation, annotation to the text, and the organization of tracts into clearly defined movements. Not all scholars agree that the entire library should be considered Gnostic. Patterson Brown has argued that the three Nag Hammadi Gospels of Thomas, Philip, and Truth cannot be so labeled, since each, in his opinion, may explicitly affirm the basic reality and sanctity of incarnate life, which Gnosticism by definition considers illusory. And so, this is important to talk about. Up until the 1970s, this Nag Hammadi Library had not been translated, had not been for the general public. So, if you find out that somebody was walking around talking about Gnosticism or talking about this Nag Hammadi Library, they ain't know what they were talking about. How could you know what you're talking about when nobody had it in the possession except the people in Egypt? Even the John, the Carl Gustav Jung Institute, they only had one. And then they had to bring it back to put in the museum in Cairo. They had to bring it back. They brought it back to Cairo. And so, just based on that one, if anybody was walking around trying to talk about that one piece, that don't mean you know what you're talking about. Because it was just one. But then they had to bring it back to Egypt to put it in Cairo in the museum. Then when you get to the translation, 1970, 1960, somewhere, you know. And like I said, that John Codex publication, 1956, just that one. And then not until 1966 with the Messina Congress. 1966. So nobody had anything their hands on the Nag Hammadi Library. It was in the museum. Because they brought the John Codex back, and they put that back in the museum. They gave it back to the Egyptians. That one codex. And up until that time, the whole Nag Hammadi Library was in Egypt. And then in 1966, the Messina Congress. And that was over in Italy. And then a whole group of scholars got together to define Gnosticism. And then Mr. Robinson and all these other people gonna get together and publish a bilingual edition of the Nag Hammadi Codex in English. And so we talking about from 1966 and then 1970. the International Committee for the Nag Hammadi Codex. That was in 1970 by UNESCO. But it's still in Egypt. The Nag Hammadi Library is still in Egypt. No, see, we have to talk about these things. Even for myself. See, when people be running their mouth, and I'm sitting here like, man, the Nag Hammadi Library is still in Egypt. Nobody got their hands, none of the contemporary scholars, none of the modern scholars, they do not have the Nag Hammadi Library in their possession. It's in Egypt, in a museum. Then here it is, 1966, the Messina Congress. Then from 1966 all the way to 1970. So in 1970, Mr. Robinson, elected secretary of the International Committee for the Nag Hammadi Codex. Okay. And who is that? By UNESCO. That's the United Nations. And who else? The Egyptian Ministry of Culture. UNESCO and the Egyptian Ministry of Culture. And then what happened? And then he oversaw this project. And then a facsimile edition in 12 volumes was published in between 1972 and 1977. So all this time passing by, up until then, nobody had their hands on the Nag Hammadi Library. Now, 1970, but this is something that you got Mr. Robinson and UNESCO and the Egyptian Ministry of Culture. It had to be translated, man. It was in Coptic. I don't know how to speak Coptic. I know damn well ain't none of these people in this country, you don't know how to speak no Coptic. Mr. Carl Jones, he didn't know how to speak Coptic. You had to get somebody that's in Egypt that know how to speak Coptic to translate this stuff. I don't speak no Coptic, man. And then, like I say, a lot of the manuscripts, they just for carbon, based on the dating, they had to date this stuff. This stuff ain't that old. It said it came. The majority of the buried manuscripts date from the 3rd and 4th century. That's when Saint Athanasius took all this stuff from the Gnostic theologians and destroyed it. Them were just the only copies that didn't get destroyed. So the Nag Hammadi Library itself is not that old. The Dead Sea Scroll is older, based on carbon dating and all the other modern methods of trying to date stuff. The Dead Sea Scroll is older than the Nag Hammadi Library manuscript. Way older. We talking about before the 1st century. We talking about BCE. The Nag Hammadi Library is CE. The Dead Sea Scroll is BCE. It's older. But I mean, that's very important, because when we talk about when they discovered the Nag Hammadi Library, it was in Egypt, and Mr. Dorisi, he didn't get possession of it. But scholars, not just Mr. Dorisi, other scholars were inquiring about what had been found. They were trying to find out, about this. What is this stuff you talking about been found? And it took all these years, all these efforts, until they finally got the Nag Hammadi Library. You got it published, got it, translated and all that. and then put back in the name, in the museum in Cairo. That's where it's at now. But from that translation, you have now the Nehemiah Library has been translated and now it is worldwide. But the original find is in the museum in Cairo. But look, it took all this effort. And so, oh, okay. Consider, okay, I read it. But I mean, this is very important for to talk about, not just for myself as a person, myself included, because it's important, when you hear about these things. And so, like I said, that's the reason why I want to talk about these things, because it's very important when you don't have possession of this information. You can't be way over here in America talking about something that even the scholars themselves can't talk about, because they don't have the documents in their possession. It hadn't even been translated. So how is it that you can be walking around talking about the Nehemiah Library and know exactly what it's about? It was still in Egypt. It was in Egypt. None of the scholars themselves had possession of the Nehemiah Library. They didn't have possession of the Nehemiah Library. What time is it? Okay. And see, this is something that has to be pointed out. You can't be walking around trying to talk about no Gnosticism and talking about you gonna go around trying to espouse Gnosticism, or you gonna go around trying to promote Gnosticism based on this. Because see, up until this, just like they told you, people talking about Gnosticism, they were talking about heresiology. They might mention the Bruce Codex, might mention the Askew Codex, they might mention the Berlin Codex. But up until the Nag Hammadi Library, though, that's all they can know on that. But then the Nag Hammadi Library be found, and see, people be lying. That's what I'm saying. See, people be going around lying. If you ain't have, if nobody had, the scholar didn't have, possession of the Nag Hammadi Library, and UNESCO had to get some people together, had to appoint Mr. Robinson to be the secretary of the International Committee for the Nag Hammadi Codex, and then in 1970 UNESCO and the Egyptian Ministry of Culture. Now, I know somebody gonna ask this question: why did the Egyptian government need UNESCO and Mr. Robinson come way over there when this information had been found in Egypt? Why is it that the Egyptian scholars couldn't do all that? Why they just couldn't just go ahead and translate it themselves and then publish, translation and whatever? Why they couldn't do that? Why is it that Dorisi and then from Dorisi all Jung had to come over there, and then from Jung you had Mr. Robinson had to come over there? Why is it that the Egyptian university, why the Egyptian scholars couldn't, once they got possession of this Nag Hammadi Library, couldn't just go ahead and date all this information and then go ahead and translate this information and go ahead and, then after they translate, then they publish all this information? Why the Egyptian government couldn't do that? Or, why the Egyptian universities couldn't do that? I can't answer. But I'm quite certain that a question probably come up like, why is it that it took Mr. Robinson to come over here, and why UNESCO had to come up? Why the Egyptian Museum had to do that? Why they just couldn't do all that themselves? I can't answer. I'm just sitting there talking about it, and we might pose these questions, but myself, I don't have the answer. I can't answer. I wouldn't even waste my time speculating on nothing like that. But it ain't nothing wrong with talking about it. But see, that's the reason why I wanted to talk about it, because I can't see, if you don't have possession of something, you don't know nothing. The only thing you did was just heard that they had found something. This all you going by, based on what you heard. You yourself over here in America, and what's over there in Egypt is in Egypt. It hadn't been translated yet. It was in Coptic. Who over here speak Coptic? Who over here can read Coptic? And all this information ain't the same. I don't know what this information is. I don't know what, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what the heck the Nag Hammadi Library is. But once they did all this, once Mr. Robinson got all the scholars together, and they did all this translating and all this, then published what they translate. It took time, man. It took time. It was almost to the 1980s. So still, how is it that you can sit around and talk about something that even the scholars themselves were not even in possession of, and they were not even fully aware of until it had been published for the worldwide publish? Because once they published it, there was a certain publishing that was just, for it to be published. It hadn't been published for the whole world to see. It took time. And when was that? When for the whole world? They say a facsimile edition in 12 volumes was published. Okay. It said it was in this capacity that he oversaw the project. A facsimile edition in 12 volumes was published between 1972 and 1977. Okay. Up until it took some time. And then, with subsequent editions in 1979 and 1984 from the publisher E.J. Brill and Layden, entitled the facsimile edition of the Nag Hammadi Codex. This made all the text available for all interests. You see what I'm saying? It took all these years up until then. Then you had to have the facsimile edition of the Nag Hammadi Codex. This made all the texts available for all interested parties to study in some form. But it took from 1972 to 1977. And then with subsequent editions in 1979 and 1984 from the publisher E.J. Brill and Layden entitled The Facsimile Edition of the Nag Hammadi Code. That's what people are studying today. The 1979 and 84 from the publisher E.J. Brill and Lee entitled The Facsimile Edition of the Nag Hammadi Codex. And this made all the texts available for all interested parties to study in some form. So that's what you're looking at. So when people be looking at the Nag Hammadi Library all over the world, what you're looking at is the 1979-1984 facsimile edition of the Nag Hammadi Codex. That's what you're looking at. Because up until then, it hadn't been it was not available for all interested parties. It was made available between 1979 and 1984. That's important. Because what is it? Who over here? So at all these colleges and universities, they couldn't even teach from the Nag Hammadi Library. That's important. Because up until that time, you couldn't do it. You had to wait till after the subsequent editions in 1979, from 1979 to 1984, when E.J. Brill and Lee entitled The Facsimile Edition of the Nag Hammadi Codex. So none of the colleges and universities could teach the Nag Hammadi Library or anything about no mandated library because they hadn't been published. It wasn't published. So, like I've been saying all the time, people been going around lying. You've been going around lying. That's all you've been doing, lying. And it's important to talk about these things and to point these things out. That it's people who are criminals. That's what you are, a damn criminal. Because all you've done is victimize men, women, and children. That's all you've done is lie. See, that's what I've been saying all the time. You don't do no more lying. You've been lying and lying and lying. That's all you've been doing is lying. That's all you've been doing, lying. It's important, man, to point these things out, because that's very important. Because the thoughts going through my mind, I'm like, the Nag Hammadi Library, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Dorisi, the Frenchman, he's a Frenchman. But it was, scholars and Mr. Dorisi. Let me scroll back up right quick. First of all, scholars first became aware of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1946. It had been found in 1945. Again, scholars first became aware of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1946. And making careful inquiries from 1947 to 1950. Now, one of those men was Jean Doris. Discovered that a local farmer who was a teenager at the time dug up the text from a graveyard in the desert located near a tomb from the 6th dynasty of Egypt. Okay. And then in the 1970s, James Robinson sought out the local farmer in question, identifying him as Muhammad Ali al-Samr. You see what I'm talking about? From 1946, then Mr. Jean Dorisi, he trying to find out about it. Then in 1970, James Robinson. 1970. Nobody had possession of the Nag Hammadi Library. It's a bunch of criminals been going around lying. And then the text was in the possession of these people, man. And then finally, there's been a lot of political turmoil in Egypt. The text never did leave Egypt. Now they talking about this one text, the Jung Codex. Then they gave it back, and it's in the museum in Cairo, in Egypt. And again, the contents of the code were written in the Coptic language. So if it's written in the Coptic language, the scholars did not have it in their possession. You could not go around talking about something that you can't even translate yourself. You had to read Coptic. And like I said, man, when it comes to the colleges and universities, once Mr. Robinson, UNESCO, and all that, and then they had, the Egyptian Ministry of Culture. Like I said, it was written in Coptic. Now, like I said, I can't answer the question like why the Egyptian government didn't just go ahead and translate. It was in Coptic. Why they didn't just have their scholars, translate the information and then do all this? Why Mr. Robinson had to come on? Why Mr. I can't answer that. It's just like today. You talking about archaeologists and all this stuff. Now I have heard someone like about what's an Egyptologist, but like I said, I can't answer some of them questions. You had to ask, But like I said, when it comes to the college and university here in the United States of America, as well as around the world, they did not have a translated copy of the Nag Hammadi Library up until when? Now you got the facsimile edition in 12 volumes was published between 1972 and 1977. So you got that. That was done. But colleges and universities didn't have that, so what happened? And then you had subsequent editions in 1979 through 1984 from the publisher E.J. Brill in Leiden, entitled The Facsimile Edition of the Nag Hammadi Codex. And this made all the texts available for all interested parties to study in some form. So now all the colleges and universities here in the United States of America, as well as around the world, now you have the Nag Hammadi Codex. That's the reason why. It took some time. And then they talking about, man, another. You have the first, first edition, then the second, then you got the third, completely revised edition was published in 1988. This marks the final stage in the gradual dispersal of Gnostic texts into the wider public arena. The full complement of codices was finally available in unadulterated form to people around the world in a variety of languages. See what I'm talking about? It took up until that point, people all around the world did not have access to this information. It took all the way up until 1988. And this is important. This is an important key to highlight. Colleges and universities did not have this information. And so, like I said, that's the reason why it's important to talk about these things, because the scholars, the contemporary scholars and modern day scholars, they did not have access to the colleges and universities here in the United States of America and around the world. They did not have it. They did not have the Nag Hammadi Library. They have it today. They have that today. Colleges and universities, they have access to the Nag Hammadi Library today, all over the world. And it's been translated in various languages. Been translated into various languages all around the world to study for investigation and research. People been lying. They've been lying. I know this. I know, you know what I'm saying? I know people be lying. Now, I know it was on my mind. I ain't gonna end today's video, but now what you see in front of you is anti-gang, anti-Gnostic, anti-Hazy. Also, adversus heresies, translated mean against heresies. Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, wrote a 5-volume book refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Also, Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church. Now, Saint Athanasius, he wrote he issued his 39th Festal Letter, Easter Letter, and he banned all non-Christian writing. And Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church, they went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian writing and destroyed it. But all the Gnostic theologian writing didn't get destroyed, because the little farm boy, he found the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945, and the contemporary scholars, modern day scholars, they have been asking about it, inquiring about it, And then in 1946, the French scholar Doris, he asked about it. But shoot, the Nagmar Library didn't get really discovered, and it was in the possession of the people in Egypt. It ain't never really get published until 1970s and 1980s. And so there were a lot of criminals been doing. People in academia and the sororities and fraternity souls and frat bitches, they just been using and misusing the Nagmar Library to victimize men, women, and children. And going around being self-destructive and destructive, trying to destroy nature, wildlife, and the environment, trying to destroy the North and South Pole, trying to go out in space, do the same thing. Going around talking about, the material worlds, evil, and all this kind of nonsense. And then they'll do all kind of same-sex nonsense, anal sex, and all that kind of crap. They just lie, man. It just be lying. That's all they do is lie. And then also, St. Epiphanes Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote a 3-volume book titled Panarian Greek, Panarian Latin, translated meaning bread basket. The scholars at the college and universities around the world say St. Epiphanes Salome 3-volume book is also a verse of heresies against heresy. the Almighty, Conservative, Vice Lord, Four Corner Hustle, the Almighty, Black Prince Stone, the Almighty, Mickey Coblestone, Cracker, the Almighty, Black Disciple, Poppy, the Almighty Bluefin, Black Disciple, the Black Disciple, Lord Stone Disciple, Gangster Disciple Killer, GDK, Glazed Donut Killer, GDK, 7-11, G Killer, Goofy. And so, like I said, man, it's been a lot of people been going around lying, and not just in the past, but in the present. And when I say lying, we talking about this name of my library. See, if you don't have possession of something, it's just like I'm holding this holy Bible. I hold this holy Bible in my hand. I got possession of this holy Bible. So, based on me holding this holy Bible in my hand, I have possession of this holy Bible. And so I can open this holy Bible. And I can go into the Old Testament. And I can also go to the New Testament. I have the Holy Bible in my possession. And then I can have Bible study. You know what I'm saying? And so on, things like that. But I have it in my possession. The Nehemiah library was not in anybody's possession, even the scholars. They did not have it in their possession. It was in the possession of the Egyptian government. And to be honest with you, they had to get possession of it. You see, that's a whole nother thing. It went from the farmers and a blood feud and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, the antiquities, they had to go over there and, you know, they had to get possession of it. You see what I'm talking about? They didn't even have, you know, the museum didn't even have possession of it. It was in the possession of the farmers who had it in their possession. They had it in their possession. And like I said, the Egyptian government had to finally get possession of it. And then put it in a museum. So anything people say or heard about the Nehemiah library, you hear all kind of stuff. You see what I'm talking about? You see the position. You see this, how they sound. People going around, a bunch of criminals, trying to make any and everybody else out to be criminals, going around telling you any and everything about the Nehemiah library and about Narcissism. Because think about before the Nehemiah library, before 1945. If there's anything anybody said about Narcissism, the only thing you could talk about was heresiology. And you may have heard somebody say something about the Ashu Codex. the Bruce Codex, the Berlin Codex. But that 1945 discovery, it's a lot of criminals going around just talking about any and everything. Telling you lying. Just lying. All the way up until the 1980s, where colleges and universities all around the world have access to the Nagamon Library. And when the colleges and universities have access to the Nagamon Library, that's when you have scholarship. You have like associate degree, bachelor degree, master degree, PhD. It took time. And see, that's what I've been doing. Taking time to do, to look things up online. It's just like the nation of Israel. How many universities they have? About 11 of them. But like I said, there's a lot of us. You know, sometimes it's good to write stuff down. Well, it's important. I should have wrote it down. Well, uh, Okay. That's what it was. That's what I should have wrote it down. But and see, like I said, I should have wrote it down. My fault, my bad, not intentional. But people all over the world communicate with one another, and people all over the world, share their culture and their customs. And so when it comes to Judaic, Christian, including Islam and all that, but teaching people about Judaism, or teaching people about Catholicism, or teaching people about Islam or whatever. And see, people, might not have the same, when you see somebody, your view, your opinion, but I found some information. I just happened to been online yesterday, just fumbling around, and just came across, a joint partnership between the people in China, the Chinese people, and the people in Israel. And so they exchange. They got like exchange with the scholars, people at colleges and university. They exchange. They send their scholars to China from Israel, and the Chinese send their scholars from China to Israel. And so, in the exchange, partnership. And so I just happen to been looking, it. At the University of Tel Aviv University, and just happened to look over there and just caught me by surprise. Nothing wrong, but I mean, it's just I wasn't aware. What I'm saying? First of all, I live here in America. I'm not in Israel, but I just happened to been online, like I say, and like I said, because of a partnership, the head of the humanities department is a Chinese man teaching Judaism. But that's the date, you know what I'm saying? That's the date. People, some of the people in China, there are Jews in China. I found that, I found that online. That there are Jews all over, in various countries. And in China, there are some Jewish people. But like I said, the head of the department, the head of the SDU is a university, Shandong University, and the Tel Aviv University Joint Institute for Jewish and Israel Studies, Shandong University. Dr. Fu Yodi. And there's some more of the faculty. So, like I say, it's a partnership between Shandong University in China and Tel Aviv University in Israel. And so I'm just gonna read this man, Mr. Fu Yadi, and he's the head of the Shandong University and Tel Aviv University Joint Institute for Jewish and Israel Studies. Dr. Fu Yodi is full professor of philosophy and Jewish studies, the founder and director of the Center for Judaic and Interreligious Studies at Shandong University, a leading research institution for the humanities and social sciences in Chinese academia. He serves as co-head of the SDU-TAU Joint Institute for Jewish and Israel Studies. He has published numerous books and essays on the history of Judaism and Jewish philosophy, and several translations include Maimonides' Guide of the Perplexed. So like I said, I apologize for, I should have wrote it down. Because like I said, I found it in, I didn't write it down, but that's my bad. And like I said, this is a joint. It's not just Tel Aviv, if I ain't mistaken. It was like 10 universities, and it's like a partnership really between China, the Chinese government and the Israeli government, but it also included the universities. You know what I'm saying? I think other colleges and universities might be involved as well. But I thought that was interesting, but that's a good thing. It's a good thing. So like I said, I found it yesterday, and I didn't write it down. My mistake. Sometimes I be having so many things going on, and then I be trying to do stuff online. Then I be looking for one other thing. Then something else pop up, and then I see it. Then I'm still trying to do something else, and then next thing I know, then I look back and I be like, I should have wrote that down. And so, like I said, that's an important thing. And like I said, people have been lying. It's important to understand the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library, as well as all these other codexes and documents and all this stuff that they find in the ground or wherever they find it. Because there's a lot of criminals. And what criminals do is they lie. They lie. And when they lie, they take advantage, they victimize men, women, and children. That's what they do. And that's the reason why I had to make it clear that it was important to understand the difference between monotheism and polytheism. Because the criminals lie. And it's the same thing. You can't be going around talking about no Jewish Gnosticism and no Christian Gnosticism. Because it's a heresy. And that's the reason why. That's the very reason why. It's a heresy. To the Jewish, to all the Jewish. You can be Orthodox Jewish or conservative Jewish, Reconstructionist, Reform Jew, whatever. They're going to all tell you the same thing. It's a heresy. Then when you come to the Catholic Church is not finna sit around with no Nazis. They done already made that perfectly clear. But it's what the Nazis try to do. The Catholic Church already told you're a heretic. And they keep having to tell you the same thing. See, all you're doing is lying. When I keep telling you, once I make it clear that you're a heretic, I ain't got to keep telling you the same thing. But that's what they do. They keep trying to impose themselves on any and everybody else. They try to use violence. When you don't accept them, then they try to find some kind of way where they can use violence But the only thing they do, violence only begets violence, man. People defend themselves. People stand up against that nonsense. And you end up getting yourself hurt or killed. That's the reason why I keep telling you, man, the people been lying. See, this is the reason why historically black colleges and universities, when we talk about being unfunded, underfunded, not funded, period. See, when you go to the website of the historical black colleges and universities, and they'll show you what bachelor's degree, master's degree, and PhD. They'll show you. They don't have no studies for that. See, when you go online and look for a degree, just like Dr. Elaine Pagels, for example, her degree, and you look for that at a historic, you ain't gonna find that at no historic black college, that field of study, because they can't afford it. It's sent straight to the point. They can't afford that. Ain't no historic black college gonna take no money and then be paying no professor. Because they can't afford it. You can transfer and go to that school, and there's other schools you can transfer to. They have the funding for that. They'll offer you a scholarship for. But we ain't got no scholarship for that. We ain't got no scholarship for you to specialize in no Gnostic and Mandaic studies. You can go to every historical black college website. And that's the same thing. The Divine Nine be lying. The Divine Nine be lying. Because they don't have no studies in no historical black college. Myself and others have looked at every historical black college and university. They don't teach it. Because they can't afford it. And I'm going to tell you this. I be looking online. I be looking at other schools. I don't think all these colleges and universities have no study in that. I think you got to transfer to some other school. And you might, like I've been looking online, I found one at like Rice College. They had one. What's it? Yeah. Yeah. That was at Rice University. Rice University. So I'm sitting here online. I'm scrolling. Now you can go to some school over in Germany somewhere, over in Amsterdam. But I mean, you can get. They got this degree over there at Rice University, Gnosticism, esotericism, and mysticism. Oh, okay, hold on. Now the state of New York, they got some kind of like esotericism, Gnosticism. University of Exeter and all this. Let me see, what's it? No, I found this man yesterday. I'm going to click on it. They wanted to kill this man. The Hindus wanted to kill him. Jeffrey J. Kripal. They wanted to kill him because he was being criticized by the Hindus. But he was over at Rice. He was the chairman at Rice University, and he was the one who started that program, the Gnosticism, esotericism, mysticism at Rice University. No, the reason why they went, he had wrote a book, and because of the book he wrote, that he kind of struck a nerve with the Hindus about that book. I think that book was Kali's Child. It was a book he wrote, and yeah, it was because of their book, Kali's Child. Then the Hindus kind of, they struck a nerve. They was upset about that. They act like they wanted to get violent with him. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, this man Jeffrey J. Kripal, he the man it was at Rice University. I don't know if he's still there or not. He was the chair of the religion department at Rice, and like I said, he was the one who set this Gnosticism, esotericism, mysticism up at Rice University. So like I said, man, you can't just think that you're going to find something at all these colleges and universities. You got to go over, you got to look around at these different colleges and universities and talking about some Gnosticism or esotericism or mysticism or whatever, or some Mandaic. In some of these Ivy League schools, you know what I'm saying, like Yale and Harvard, yeah, quite naturally, they got that kind of money. You know what I'm saying? Harvard and Yale, they got that kind of money. Princeton. I found this other lady, what's his name? Oh, yeah. So like I said, nothing against this man. It was just out, just looking at different degrees and things like that. Like if you was interested in something, what kind of school, but you ain't gonna find no historically black college or university. So if with the Divine Nine, they be lying. They be lying because historically black college, they ain't got that kind of money, man. They ain't got that kind of money for no professor. Talking about paying no professor and talking about no scholarship. The historically black college university do not have any money for these kind of schools, for that type of class. No. And they ain't going to be paying no professor. No. Because they ain't got the money. But like I said, I found this man, Jeffrey J. Kripal. And he was over at, I don't think he's there no more, Jeffrey J. Kripal. And he was at Rice University, that's in Houston, Texas. And he had set up this PhD program, this doctoral program, Gnosticism, esotericism, and mysticism. And before I end today's video, I found this lady, pretty intelligent. Now, I found this lady. She's on the faculty at Haverford College, and she's her name is Ann McGuire. And I'm gonna show you a picture. And then I want you to listen to what she concentrating in. Now you see this lady here? You want to ask her how much she getting paid at the college? Because I'm finna show you what she's studying. Now, she has a BA from Bernhard College, a master's at Columbia University, and then she got a master's and PhD from Yale University. Now this lady, her research and her teaching are concerned primarily with the analysis and interpretation of early Christian and Gnostic literature, especially the writings of the Nag Hammadi Library discovered in Egypt in 1945. Although the majority of Nag Hammadi texts were originally composed in Greek between the 2nd and 3rd century Common Era, they survive only in the 4th century Coptic versions discovered in Nag Hammadi. Her current research focuses on the relation between religious conceptions of gnosis, knowledge, and gender imagery in selected Nag Hammadi texts, including the Gospel of Thomas, the hypostasis of the Archons, the Gospel of Philip, and Thunder, Perfect Mind. You can find my translation of Thunder, Perfect Mind with introductory notes at the Diotima website. And her publication includes studies of several Nag Hammadi texts, such as the Gospel of Truth, the hypostasis of the Archon, and Thunder, Perfect Mind, 1997. She co-edited the Nag Hammadi Library after 50 years. Proceedings of the 1995 Society of Biblical Literature Commemoration, edited by John D. Turner and Ann McGuire. Nag Hammadi and Menachem Studies, 44, Leading in New York, East J. Brill, 1997. And saying this volume includes papers presented in 1995 at Haverford College and at the annual meeting of the Society of Biblical Literature in Philadelphia to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library. Her current research and course projects also include a study of religious and artistic representation of Mary Magdalene, as well as a course on images of Jesus, supported by a Teaching with Technology grant. In 2007, she was selected by the Pennsylvania Humanities Council to serve as a Commonwealth Speaker for 2010-2012 on the topic, Reimagining Mary Magdalene, Female Witness, Disciple Icon. Interested organizations can contact the Pennsylvania Humanities Council for more information about PAC sponsored speaking engagement in 2010-2012. Now, do you think the Historical Black College got enough money to pay her? No, they ain't got no money. So like I said, none of these historical black colleges and universities got enough money just to pay one. Just to pay this one lady with her education and with her field and with her background with this early Christian writing in this Nag Hammadi library, you ain't got that kind of money, man. So you know the Divine Nine be lying. They be lying. So like I said, that's important. It's a lot of things in this day and time being done. But like I said, I was just online and everything, and with all this talk about this Gnostic and all this Nag Hammadi library and Mandaic texts and Manichaean texts, there's some other, what's the name, Prophet Manna, that Manichaean stuff. They found that kind of stuff too, and so. But like I said, when it comes to Judaism, man, Judaism is monotheism. And all that polytheism and all that dualism is not the same. It's not the same. But see, that's how they tried to make it. They tried to make it sound like it's, you know what I'm saying, like we just like you. We just, no, you ain't got nothing. No. Judaism, first of all, like Rabbi Akiva told you. He don't want no Grecian philosophy to be an influence on Judaism. He didn't want no Gnosticism to be an influence on Judaism. He didn't want all this intellectual stuff to be an influence on Judaism. You got to find something to counterbalance for that, all that intellectualism. And like I said, because it's a heresy. It's a heresy. Gnosticism is a heresy to Judaism. You got to get this out your mind. Gnosticism is a heresy to Judaism. To the Catholic Church, Gnosticism is a heresy. It's supposed to be a heresy to all this Protestant non-denominationalism, but you act like, you know what I'm saying, you don't know what you're talking about. But, so-called Christian. And when I intentionally did that, because that was the Catholic bishops and when you say Christian and you say Catholic, they not the same. All that Protestant stuff, it's not the same. Because that's a heresy to the Catholic Church. And all this non-denominationalism. I'm getting ready to end today's video, but I'm gonna say this. I think it's a good program. Been shown on And so, like I said, before I end the day, I just want to say that's a good program. The original OGs, and open up a lot of people's eyes to, like I said, it's American history. And it's a lot of things that have transpired. And what I want to say is about, it's been a lot of lies being told by a lot of criminals, and a lot of it dealt with, and during that period of time, when you're talking about the 40s and the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, that's the reason why it's so important that I do the things that I do, is to show that there's been a lot of lies being told and by a lot of criminals, criminals, and victimizing men, women, and children. But like I said, original OG is a good program, and continue to do, hope that program continue to do things that's benefiting, because it's a positive program. It's a very positive program, and you get an insight into a lot of things that people have done, and always have this negative opinion. But you see a lot of things people done with just trying to make a living, and some people made a lot of money, whatever, and not necessarily that they did it a criminal way, but and then had people went to jail, went to prison, but they got out of prison, their life changed, and they doing very well. They doing very well. Been out of jail and prison for many years, and they doing pretty good for themselves and their families. So that show, it opened up people's eyes to the truth, because there's been a lot of lies being told, and because of lies, people get victimized. Men, women, and children get victimized. And so I do the things I do for the same reason, is to get all these lies out the way, man, and not have people being victimized because of these lies. And so, that's a good program. The original OG, it's a good program, very positive program. And I want to get ready to end today's video. I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessings and the guidance He provided myself as well as all of us with. Continue to pray for wars being fought all over the world. Wars being fought all over the world. And can pray and just pray for peace. And pray for peace all over the world. Pray that God intervene and that it be peace. And I'm going to get ready to end today's video again. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine Library. I live right here in the city of Memphis. It's in the state of Shelby. It's in the county of it's in the state of Tennessee in the county of Shelby. And so, I thank all my family for support. You continue to current support. And until next time, you take care of yourself and wish each and every one of you the very best.